Hey guys, welcome back to Moyong, the cooking channel that's not so useless. In this video, we'll be cooking up some wuxi pork ribs. These are desirably sweet and sticky ribs, with an undertone of sourness from the jangon vinegar that can be eaten hot or cold. And who could possibly say no to meat that just comes clean off the bones? And to make this dish, you'll need to do two key things: marinate the pork ribs, and then cook them. For the ingredients, you'll need pork ribs, light soy sauce, cooking wine, jangon vinegar, tomato sauce, salt, star anise, water, brown sugar blocks, ginger, spring onion, cinnamon stick, and cornstarch. For the quantities, you'll need to marinate 500 grams of pork ribs with 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of light soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of cooking wine, and 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. And when cooking, you'll need 1 teaspoon of cooking wine, 1.5 cups of water, 4 slices of ginger, 1 star anise, 1 cinnamon stick, 3 spring onion stems, 2 tablespoons of jangon vinegar, 45 grams of brown sugar blocks, and 2 tablespoons of tomato sauce. But before we begin, if you do enjoy this video, do consider subscribing, as it does help the channel out. Now, just a heads up, we're going to be using ribs that are cut from the pork belly. Other cuts of ribs end up being too tough for our liking when using this recipe, but we found great success when using ribs from the pork belly instead. So starting off, we're going to give the ribs a good wash. And be sure to scrub the cross section of the bone thoroughly, as there can be quite a bit of bone debris left over from the bone saw. Next, pat the ribs dry really well with some paper towels. Then separate the rack of ribs from the pork belly. And it's up to you how much meat remains on the top of the bones, but just don't go overboard. Then with the pork belly, just put it aside and use it in another recipe. Next, separate the rack into individual ribs. Now our ribs were already showing signs of leaking blood. And of course, we want to get rid of this. So submerge the ribs in water. And add in half a teaspoon of salt. And by doing this, the blood won't ruin the aesthetic of our dish. Then just leave the ribs aside for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, drain out the water and give the ribs a thorough wash through. Afterwards, your ribs should be free of any dark hues of red. Once again, dry the ribs well with some paper towels, or let them dry in the fridge. Then marinate the ribs with the salt, light soy sauce, and cooking wine. Once the ribs are mixed and the salt melted, add in the cornstarch and mix well. And after you're done, let it marinate for at least 30 minutes. So when the ribs are almost done marinating, peel the skin off the ginger and then cut some slices. With the spring onion, we're only interested in the lower stem portion, so remove the top portion. Then when you've measured everything out, you're ready to cook the ribs. So at your stove, turn the heat up high, and when hot, add in some oil. Once the oil is nice and hot, add in your pork ribs meat side down, and cook until golden. Now, we like to add a tiny bit more oil down the sides of the pan, just to help the side pieces develop their color better. And because we used a big pan, we repositioned it a few times to ensure an even distribution of heat to the ribs. Now be mindful of how quickly the middle ribs are cooking. If your heat is too high, the middle ribs may burn before the outer ribs are done, so lower the heat if you deem it necessary. And for us, about 2 minutes later, the ribs were ready to flip. Well, at least most of them were. Then just repeat for roughly the same amount of time. But make note that since the ribs are slightly curved, the underside of the ribs aren't going to develop that same golden color as the meaty side. After 2 minutes, add in the cooking wine down the sides of the pan, as well as the water. Then add in the ginger slices, star anise, cinnamon stick, and spring onion. And flip the ribs once more to ensure the meaty portion is facing downwards. Once the water boils, turn the heat down low and put on the lid. And then just let it cook for about 40 minutes. 20 minutes in, flip the ribs over. Then put the lid on and continue for the remaining 20 minutes. After 40 minutes in total, remove the spring onion, star anise, cinnamon stick, and ginger. Then flip the ribs once more. Before adding in the Jungon vinegar. And for the brown sugar blocks, you'll want to break them into small pieces to make it easier to dissolve in the remaining liquid in the pan. And finally, add in the tomato sauce, before gently mixing until most of the sugar dissolves. And again, ensure that the meat portion is facing downwards. Then just let the liquid reduce into a thick glaze-like consistency. If you feel like there's too much liquid, then turn the heat up to a medium to hasten the process. And every so often, gently move the ribs around. For us, it took about 5 minutes for the liquid to thicken up to a sauce-like consistency. And from there, we continuously turn the ribs over every 30 seconds to give them a nice coating. Then once the sauce reaches that glaze-like consistency, you'll have about a few tablespoons of sauce by this stage. So give the ribs one last coating to amp up their sheen. Then just plate them up, and your beautifully glazed sweet wuxi pork ribs are done. So guys, that was my family's recipe for wuxi pork ribs. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you ever get the chance to make this at home, be sure to tell us how it goes. And if you want to see any of our future videos, be sure to subscribe. See ya.